Well, hello, everybody. Colin Harper, joined by Michael Kutch. Hope you all had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Thanks for joining us here on Friday Live. We get together about 12:30 every Friday and do quick market updates, some planning topics for the week. Mike, it's kind of nuts out there. We were talking a little bit. We were talking about hair loss as both of us went for the summer cut look. We were talking about how long we're going to have hair. I'm jokingly aside, I'm sure mine will be all gray very shortly here. But just a quick reminder, nothing we talk about today is meant to be specific advice to your situation. I always recommend you talk to us or another financial professional no, you should talk to us. We're better. But my bias aside, none of this is specific advice. Certainly seek out professional guidance on this. It's just our observations and thoughts of what's going on today. Mike, I know the jobs report is what we were talking about before we kind of click go live here. Why don't we dive in there and just talk about some interesting numbers. Have you ever seen anything like what we're seeing today in your career as far as the jobs numbers go?
No, I scratched my head with the numbers this morning because they don't really make sense to me. You had a pretty big uptick in the non-farm payroll number. That headline number came in at 339,000, higher than expectations in last month. But at the same time, you also had the unemployment rate tick to 3.7 from 3.4. That's a pretty big jump. So I'm not sure why that occurred. Participation rate was pretty much unchanged. The only thing that I saw was maybe with having something to do with the decline in the average work week that I think was the lowest level since summer of 2020. So maybe that played a part. I was listening to some economists. No one really clarified that for me, but I'll keep digging on that front. But it's kind of been the same story. You see some weakness in the economy, but the employment situation has not gotten the memo yet. We had the ISM manufacturing numbers this week, slightly below expectations. I think it came in at 46.9. So in contractionary territory, prices paid and new orders were pretty low on that. And then we also got the JOLTS numbers this week. That's the job openings. Now, that's not the May number. I believe that's for the month of April, so it's pretty delayed. But you actually saw that tick back up to 10.1 million. So still a lot of job openings per unemployed person. We'll have to see what the CPI data is. We get that like a day before the Fed meeting, I think on like the 12th or 13th. So right now, market's kind of thinking that we may get a Fed pause, or I guess skip is the term right now, meaning a higher likelihood of no rate hike in June and a possibility, I think 60% chance of one in July. But I don't know. We'll have to see. The Fed may keep going. It's really kind of mixed data. Like, I think it's smart for them to take a pause because it does work with the long and variable lag. And we're just kind of at, 14 months or so from the first rate hike. Mm-hmm. And most of those were, they're very like middle of the year, back of the year weighted, where we started getting those bigger 50, 75 basis point hikes. So those may still need to seep into the market. Then you have the whole banking tightening coming. And then also, we did get a deal with the debt ceiling. That was really a non-issue. I was very, very surprised that market didn't seem to care at all. But with that comes an inflow of issuance in the treasury market that'll need to take place over the next couple of months. So
yeah, and I was watching that debt ceiling thing, and I thought it was very interesting how it really had very little impact on the I think last time we ran into something like that, there was a significantly more volatility.
I think it was, I'm trying to think of the last time, but September of 2021, where we were kind of in that steady bull market. And then that came around and caused the first, not substantial. I think it was only like a 5% pullback, but at least something, some generation. But I think the market just is come to the conclusion, this happens all the time, and they always strike a deal eventually, always wait till the last minute, but we're not going to worry about it. Yeah. And quite frankly, the ramifications are too significant if they do default that how do you even plan for that?
I think the world would look very different if a default actually happened, right? I don't think there's a world where we can actually default on that. It just doesn't, it just doesn't play out.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for them to do it. It just.
I don't know. Maybe the market
that happens, but that does mean that they're going to have to issue bonds and rebuild up that treasury reserve. So I think a lot, like you saw some moves in the bond market leading up, like while that was in the discussions over the past couple of weeks. So maybe that doesn't have to do too much, but that could also act as some tightening in the financial system. But it really will depend on where that money gets funded, whether it's just people moving from money market to that, or if they're taking it out of like stocks and that type of thing, fixed income.
Yeah, and I would agree with all that you're saying. Obviously, Mike, you spend way more time on it than I do. I mean, I would say for long-term investors, things still look good, but I would argue that folks retiring soon or shortly are definitely going to be subject to kind of what we call sequence of return risk on the planning side of things, which means, I may, judging by all my modeling, have plenty to retire. But if I retire at the wrong time frame and have, maybe 1 or 2 years of significant down markets and start pulling income off those assets, it can have a catastrophic effect on my retirement income kind of going forward, depending on where you're pulling your retirement income from and what that looks like. So I would say long-term investors, it's kind of a non-issue. This prolonged, I would call it a prolonged uncomfortable cycle that is heading us towards a recession at some point. Is that a fair summary of what we've been going through so far?
I think so. I think there might be a higher chance of what they call a soft landing, like a no recession scenario, but when I think through that process, it ultimately comes down to my opinion that inflation probably won't go down that quickly. So maybe the Fed gets to 6% instead of stopping here or another basis point higher, 25 basis point higher. So then you got to just put this whole thing back on the table where, maybe we will have a hard landing. So I don't know. We'll just have to see where the data goes and keep an eye on it. But the market's been doing good. Well, the market cap weighted index has been doing good. Fun fact, it's the biggest dispersion between the market cap and the equal weight index since 1999.
Well, and don't feel bad if you're listening to this because I asked Mike what in the world that means too. So,
that means that the tech stocks are carrying all the gains for this year, and the cyclicals, the ones that are more tied to the economy, have done pretty poorly to start the year. Mm-hmm. So one of two things is going to happen. Either the tech stocks are going to decline and maybe the whole market declines, or the rest of the market catches up, or they both participate.
It's definitely been it's been a difficult market to navigate. Sorry, as I'm trying to silence all my dings and rings over here. Forgot to click mute on the thing. It's been a difficult market to navigate, Mike. I think you've been doing a very good job with our models internally. But at the end of the day, a lot of our investment decisions are based on planning discussions first and foremost. So there's we kind of always talk about the willingness and the ability to take risk. So say somebody, Mike and my age, on the younger side of the spectrum, we have the ability to take on a lot more risk than somebody who's maybe 1 to 2 years from retirement, given all factors equal. And that's just because our time horizon is much longer. And with longer time horizons, you can drastically sway risk in your favor, depending on, if you're 10 plus years, right? That's a very favorable number for long-term investing. But, maybe I hate seeing my account balance go down. And so my willingness to take risk is actually much lower than my ability to take risk. And whenever we're doing planning, that planning discussion often helps us see both sides of the ability and the willingness and match them together on a comfortable plane for our clients. Mike, anything else you want to add about the market before I hop into kind of our planning topic? Do you know it's National Donut Day today?
Oh, I did not know that. No, nothing really to add. We did finally get definitively above that 4,200 level. We're about 4,250 right now. So that clears the way, at least all the way to 4,300. So that's about 1.5% higher from here.
All right. I love it.
And that also happens to be a lot of forecasters forecasts for year-end targets on the S&P. So whether they start revising those higher or whether this is it.
Yeah, time will definitely tell. So if we kind of branch over to our planning topic, it's how much should you be saving for retirement? That's a very personal question, and it's impossible to answer by me sitting here in my basement talking on a live stream, but I can give you some general guidelines or good points to aim for. And then, depending on what you're planning for in retirement will really impact how much you need to save before retirement. And we can certainly help you with that more in-depth planning, but I wanted to give everyone just some broad goals to reach for so you can kind of tell, hey, am I on track or not on track? I would say generally, we would encourage you to save between 10 to 15% of your salary annually up until you retire. I would say the more you can do, the better, right? If you can get up to 20%, fantastic. I would say 10 is the bare minimum. 15 would really be ideal. All the way up to 20. And so what we're trying to do by retirement saving, we're trying to replace, there's an 80% rule that a lot of experts kind of go by, and that you're going to need to replace 80% of your income in retirement. Now, that's not necessarily accurate, right? There's a lot of different factors that come into play, but it's a good rule of thumb. So say you're making $100,000 a year in the household, and we're going to need to replace 80,000 of that in retirement. So these savings are trying to get us a pool to draw income from, along with other guaranteed sources. If you're lucky enough to have a pension still, Social Security, things like that, all those different spigots will get turned on to fill up our retirement bucket, if you kind of look at it through that image. So that's an annual percentage. To give you an idea of actual dollars, by age 30, and this is just a, kind of a generic study off Investopedia, nothing special here. By age 30, you should have, roughly 1 time your annual salary saved. So, you're making $50,000 a year when you're 30, you should have 50,000 saved. By age 40, shoot for 3 times your annual salary saved. By age 50, shoot for 6 times that annual salary. And by 60, you really want to shoot for 8 times your annual salary. By 67, you should, if you're still working at 67, about 10 times your annual salary. So, for example, if you're making $75,000 a year and you're 67, 10 times 75,000, 750,000 would probably be enough to replace that income in retirement. And like I mentioned before, these are very generic recommendations, or not recommendations, very generic kind of benchmarks to look at and say, hey, I think I'm close to on track, but it'll give you a kind of a litmus test to see where you are. But that's the basics of retirement saving. How much should you save for retirement? If I give you the cheeky answer, it's more. I think everybody would like to have a bigger nest egg at the end of the day, but it's also important to, and I think one of the things we spend the most time, at least, on the planning side, where we spend the most time is, everything comes with a trade-off, right? So if say I increase my annual savings by 5%, I'm probably giving up some quality of life along the way, or maybe I'm giving up a vacation that I could spend with my kids when they're young. So it's important to plan for the future, but it's also important to live in the present. So a lot of our decisions are based on quality of life decisions, right? I always talk about 2 Buffetts whenever we're planning. We got Warren and Jimmy. And Warren is the hard, fast rules, the science behind financial planning. So Warren would say, squirrel it all away for a rainy day. But Jimmy, who, fun fact, I've actually surfed with Jimmy Buffett down in West Palm in my years. I did. He has a house right there in West Palm, and we used to see him out in the lineup. I was always too scared to talk to him, but he always looked like he was very, very zen-like out there in the lineup. But so Jimmy is, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. right? So he realizes that it's important to go through life and have fun and, have those memories with your family and do things you want to do, as long as it's not going against the science or putting you in a bad spot later on down the road. So finding that balance is super important. Like everything in life, there are very few, pure black or white answers. There's some gray area in there, and financial planning, the financial planners that do it very well are very good at, helping folks find that middle ground of quality of life now and quality of life later. So that's just my quick little bit about retirement planning, how much you should be saving for it. Mike, you got anything fun to end us on today? Because I'm fresh out of
just a little surprised that I didn't hear any babies crying.
Well, they're screaming upstairs, but this mic is really good at capturing close sound. So
so your new baby girl will be 2 weeks tomorrow?
So Zoe will be 2 weeks old tomorrow. We are thrilled. Everybody, baby and mom, happy, healthy. So we're very thrilled to have her join the family. I'm
healthy, happy, and tired, right?
Happy, healthy, and tired. I've only been screamed at like a couple times, and I'm going to attribute that all to lack of sleep. So, I think we'll make it here. Looking forward to getting in the office so I get some cat naps in during the day. It's much easier to cat nap there than at home. There's always, some baby that needs something done. So, Mike, have an awesome weekend. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Looking forward to catching up with you all next week again.